But I think in the virtual environment, what we do is we put out our why. Like, why do we exist? And I said, we exist is because we believe that everyone should be able to have a career, life, and family, how they choose. And so our clients, we want them to be able to grow their business and spend more time with their family and have a life. And for our team members, we want them to be able to be at the graduation or the ballet lessons, but also still be able to have a career no matter what.
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsay Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
Welcome to another episode of Drop and Give Me 20. I am excited to be here. I am Erin Ward with HRVA Homes at Keller Williams Town Center in Hampton Roads, Virginia. Hey everyone, I'm so excited to host my first Drop and Give Me 20 podcast. Today we are joined by Laura Renner, Managing Director of Freedom Makers, and Diane Jaquith, Executive Director for Wise Advise and Assist Team. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects, running a remote business. But I'm really excited about this topic and what both of your companies are doing. I think it's greatly impacting the military spouse and veteran community, and that's something I have such passion for. I love entrepreneurship and I love employment solutions. Like, that's a big deal to me. I worked on that kind of thing for years. So for me, 24 years ago, when I started this crazy military spouse journal, this was not even in the radar of possibility. So that's what I really love, seeing this kind of thing come into the military community. And to me, it just makes so much sense. So right off the bat, I want to give each of you guys to kind of give us an opportunity to hear a little elevator speech about your remote businesses. So Diane, I'll start with you.
Sure. So hi, I'm Diana, and I am the co-founder of Wise Advise and Assist Team. And what we do is to help businesses grow by outsourcing to military spouse professionals. So we're an all-remote team, and we basically just look for ways to help businesses grow, either their website, getting PR, whatever. That's what we do.
Awesome. All right, Laura, tell me about Freedom Makers.
Sure. So, hi, everyone. I'm Laura. I'm the founder of Freedom Makers, and we create freedom for small business owners by providing virtual assistant services. And we feature military spouses as the assistants. Most of our clients are solo business owners, and so we tend to help with things like social media coordination, marketing coordination, and a lot of back office admin type tasks.
I love it. As a solo business owner myself, I love this concept. And even though I have an amazing admin on site with me, but there's only so much we can do, especially as my business is rapidly growing like crazy right now. So I love the concept of having this kind of option available to me. So Laura, tell me why you think running a remote business for military spouses and even for veterans is something that should really be considered when weighing employment options.
Well, the big thing for me is I'm an Army brat as well. And so I'm a true nomad. And I move all the time. I remember when I first filed our business for a DUNS number, the lady called me and was like, "Were you in the military?" And I said, "Yeah, why?" She's like, "Okay, that explains the 14 different addresses. We're going to go ahead and approve you." And so that's just how I am and how I grew up. And I've maintained that as an adult. And so when I started the business, I thought, okay, I need to build something where I can run it no matter where I'm at. And it fit in line with the spouses as well, that they can continue working no matter where they are or how often they're moving and things like that. So that was a big component for when I set up our business. And even now, we'll get clients that say, "I understand you're completely virtual, but could they come once a month?" And I'm like, no, because then when they PCS, they're not going to have a job anymore. And that flies in the face of our mission. And so we refuse to do that.
That makes a lot of sense. So you're kind of combating that PCS lost job situation. And I think that's the biggest hurdle of being a military spouse. And in fact, I just did an interview about that recently too, where, talking about, the hardest thing as a military spouse for me has been, constantly having to change jobs. I mean, it's made me incredibly well-rounded. However, it's cost me tons in wages. So Diana, do you kind of see the same thing in creating Wise Advise and Assist?
Absolutely. I mean, being a military spouse myself, it was born out of necessity, right? So I think a lot of things and a lot of the resiliency that we see in spouses, this is what it produces. And our team, being mostly military spouses, some veteran spouses, just seeing the difference in that type of person and the ability for them to quickly adapt in all situations really makes them an ideal person to hire for your team. But more so, these are people who will stick with it. Like, they're resilient. They're going to move across the country. They're still going to be able to work. They're going to be, they have, babies, and they're doing stuff on this. It's just amazing what this type of person can do. And so I think it's just a different expectation of who we are as spouses and as somebody who can kind of put up with the life, if that makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And I love that thought process, because I do think of military spouses and veterans as some of the most resilient inside our population, like hands down, period. I mean, who's better at moving across the country and all the logistical work that requires than a military spouse and a veteran? And so to be able to juggle all that and keep, their remote work going, I think is a testament to all those amazing things we hear. And Laura, you mentioned something earlier that I'm kind of curious about, and that's like when you do have customers that ask for that, that on-site kind of thing, how do you get over that hurdle? I mean, just saying no. I mean, are there other things? I mean, do you have to sell it to them to explain why the virtual really does work in the end when they're so used to the on-site work?
I think it depends. We had one case where she wanted to meet in person, and then she ended up choosing to meet over video instead. And I think sometimes she wishes it could be in person, but she's been with us for a couple years. And so, she's worked for her. And others at that, if that's a big hang up for them, then I'm like, we're not a fit for you. And that's okay. There are tons of other options out there for you. But I don't feel like it's really hindered things, because they're like, if it's something where it's maybe once a month, they're like, oh, we can have someone else take care of that piece, but we'll have you take care of all the virtual stuff. Or we're not a fit, and that's okay too, because that's not in line with their business. At the same time, of course, they really want to support military spouses and military families. So if they can make it work, they will. But if it doesn't fit with how they run their business, then that's okay too. And in a way, it's kind of a shame, because there's so many online tools. At the same time, some people like to work on site, and you can't judge them for that. So,
yeah. I think sometimes even for me, and I consider myself pretty tech savvy, sometimes even for me, and my admin and I often work apart. I mean, we live in the same area, but we often work in different locations. And sometimes I'm like, no, we need to just regroup. But I do see pieces and parts of my business that would make sense to kind of pass off and easily handled virtually. I mean, there's just no sense not doing it that way. And I see this kind of virtual work and remote work becoming more and more popular. I'm in the real estate industry. Obviously, it's become huge in the real estate industry. I mean, I get calls every day from companies asking me to hire virtual assistants, and I get an email every day, so it's really become incredibly popular. So do you think, and Diana, you can maybe talk, do you see like an upswing in popularity for this kind of thing for small businesses?
I think awareness is definitely picking up quite a bit, where when we first started several years ago, I would have to kind of explain virtual work and how it kind of worked. At this point, I really feel like virtual assisting, that category, made a name for itself. People understand what that is. And so they're coming to us, they understand at least the scope of what that looks like. Yeah, and we have some just like Laura said, hey, can you come in office? No, that's not really, even if we had some in the area, which we might, and we may still have somebody to replace them, it doesn't fit with what we're trying to do, which is, hey, let's take this off, make it a virtual kind of outsourcing model, and then you can focus on that. So
yeah, I mean, I can definitely see that. And I love the fact that you guys you're not compromising away from the virtual side of this. You're really sticking to it and saying, hey, if this isn't something that works for you and you really, really need that on-site help, we're not the company for you. I think that's important to stick to that model. I think that's awesome. So what kind of, like, in general, I mean, don't get into specific proprietary stuff at all, but like, what kind of tools are you using with clients that make it easier for you guys? I mean, I know, we were stationed overseas twice, and I would have gotten up at 2 a.m. in the morning to work with clients if this had been an opportunity. And, if there were tools out there. So what kind of tools are you guys finding? I mean, is FaceTime or, video conferencing or anything like that? Like, is that a big thing for remote workers?
Yeah, I mean, I think we use a bunch of different softwares. We always use a project management tool. I think that's kind of the basis of what we do, is because really systems is one of our 3 tenets of like how we work. And really, like, my tips for, or running a virtual business, having systems in place. So we do have, project management tool that we use. We love, I'm happy to share it. Teamwork. It's amazing. It's like a step up from a Trello. Trello is really amazing too. But when you get into where you're managing, 40, 50, 60, 100 projects, Trello, that's a lot of Trello boards. So Teamwork is kind of a system for our team. And then if our client has one they would rather us use, obviously we'll use that. But if they don't have one, which most of the time they're not organized, we come in and implement that. Video conferencing is the other, really important thing. And then I find calendar scheduling, because I don't know how many times you go back and forth trying to pick a time for something. So all of our team has an appointment scheduler, and they have to keep their calendar up to date, because the client scheduled a time with you. That's because your calendar said you were available. So kind of keeping that where those are, video, calendar, and project management is like the basis, I'd say, for how we run things.
I 100% agree with Diana on all of those. I'd say too, a big thing for us is systems. And for us, it's making sure the client has systems in place for us to execute, basically. And so we do use things like Zoom and calendars as well. And also a big one for us that I like is called Process Street. And it's a way to build a system. In a way, it's kind of like a checklist. You turn your system into a checklist, and then you can launch it for every different time you need to execute that system. So I really like that one. And the big thing for us too is paperless. Like, really, if the business owner, the client can be paperless, that's when they can really rely on a virtual team. Because if they are, oftentimes we get requests for entering business cards, and it's like, well, how do you get the cards to the Freedom Maker? Well, you have options, right? And one of them is mailing them. But if you don't want to let go of that, if you don't want to scan them or take photos of them, and your other option is mailing them or not having us do it, because we're not going to come to your office to do it, right? So it's that getting that mindset of getting away from paper. So a lot of our clients do use things like Dropbox or other ways to share documents so that it can be completely virtual. But I've noticed that seems to be the biggest stumbling block for business owners to become virtual, is relying on paper.
That makes sense. I'm glad you cannot see the full scope of my office right now, because it is a mess of paper. So, and I strive to get better at that.
And I'll add a caveat. I still love handwriting notes. And when I'm on a call, I'm always handwriting notes. But after the call, I scan it, and then I toss the paper. And so then all of my notes are online in our cloud drive, but at least I still got to handwrite my notes. So that's how I do it personally.
That's a really smart idea. One of the things, and I know you guys have all talked about, you have teams of people that are working with you on this stuff. And so how do you keep up with them remotely? I mean, I, at one point in a previous life prior to real estate, worked with and kind of helped to oversee a group of like 40 remote veterans and military spouses all across the country and some overseas. And that's a huge task. Just making sure that all the things are done. I try very hard not to micromanage. I mean, we've talked about what an amazing hire a military spouse or a veteran is. And so, I always try to hire with trust and those kinds of things. So how are you managing all these geographically dispersed folks without having a brick and mortar type of business?
I think for us, we use several different like check-in points, but we do operate on a Slack channel, which is something that we found is just a really great day-to-day quick messenger. But again, it's systems. So depending on how your organization's set up, You may want to have a place where they can forecast their time that they're going to be in office or not. Or you may want to be able to see everyone's calendar. It really depends, I think, on how you want your organization set up. I like Slack because it's quick day-to-day stuff. But for bigger things going out, like we have weekly newsletters that we send to our team, and we have different checkpoints within our team. Like we have a monthly call where everyone at the same time gets on a call and we can see everyone's face, which I think is really important because we like our monthly calls, we like our Slack channel, and we like kind of like a weekly email update for the team.
That's great. Laura, any other tips?
Yeah, it's kind of similar. So my model is a little bit different from Diana's in that once our Freedom Makers are with their clients, they kind of work independently with the client, but we do have our internal team as well. And so we have the same thing with the whole company. We have a quarterly call, same thing where it's on Zoom so everyone can see everyone's faces, and that's really nice. And then with my internal team, there's just 4 of us, and I have a weekly call with each of them. So just this morning, I had a weekly call with one of them. I had one yesterday, and then the next one on Friday. And those might be phone calls, or they might be Zoom if we need to share the screen and look at different things. But that's a big deal, I think, for any business owner working remotely, is having regular check-ins. There's no rescheduling, there's no scheduling. It's just on the calendar every week at this date and time. We're going to have a phone call or a Zoom call, and it's just a standing meeting, and that's really important. And for me, a part of the reason why we're named Freedom Makers is that freedom is a big deal for me. So I don't monitor the time that they're working, right? Like I met a business owner once who had a team, I think, of 10 people, and every morning everyone signs in the Skype, and they literally sign out when they go on their 15-minute break or they go on their lunch break. And that's a big deal that they're all there. So it's like a regular work day in an office, except everyone's working at home. And I almost vomited or gagged, I should say. I was like, well, that's impressive for her, but that's just not my model. And so I don't necessarily monitor their time, but we do have regular check-ins, and that's a big deal. I would just like what Diana said. And we use Slack as well for our internal communications. That's so critical, I think. 1, just because I hate email, so it gets it all out of email. But 2, you're able to, like if a client issue comes up, the communication is in that Slack channel. And so it's very organized. I call it organized text messaging. So it's like, it gets rid of the cons of texting, but keeps all the pros, and it makes some improvements as well. So I'm a big fan of Slack also.
And I love what you guys are saying, because I know when I was in that position, and I did that for 8 years. I worked remotely for 8 years. And I think a lot of the time, it can be a very lonely experience. And unfortunately, because of my position within the organization, it wasn't something that I had a lot of freedom, because I was pretty stacked throughout the day. And I may be on the phone all day with people and interacting, but it was kind of lonely sometimes. So I love that you guys are connecting and finding ways to connect. And, and one of the things, as I look even to build my current organization, in ensuring that I offer freedom and stuff like that, I want to hold on to culture, and culture inside my organization is so important to me, and making sure that, I want to build a company and an organization that people don't want to leave, right? They believe in the mission and they believe in the culture, and they want to kind of get in. Is there anything you guys specifically lay out in advance to hold on to culture and maybe hold on to those folks? Like once you bring them in, you want to keep them, So is there anything in particular you're doing that might be unique from a remote aspect?
I guess for me, the biggest thing is I'm always saying that freedom is a guiding principle. And so even when someone has a suggestion, if it's something that would even make us more profitable, but it would put some restrictions on our freedom makers or our clients, I say no, because I'm always talking about how freedom is a guiding principle. And so I think that has been a big part of our culture. And we've also tried, like in our quarterly calls, to remind everyone of our different themes and things like that. But I think that just having that one guiding principle has been a big determination for our culture.
That makes sense. And Diana, for you, is there anything that you guys are doing to kind of like build that sense of culture and that desire to stay within the organization?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, pushing exactly like what you stand for. It's almost more important, I would say, on a virtual team than in an office where you can post like excellence and responsibility or whatever. I mean, I remember the core values from when I worked corporately, like they meant nothing to me, but I saw them all the time, right? But I think in the virtual environment, what we do is we put out our why, like, why do we exist? And I said, we exist, why is because we believe that everyone should be able to have a career, life, and family, how they choose. And so our clients, we want them to be able to grow their business and spend more time with their family and have a life. And for our team members, we want them to be able to be at the graduation or the ballet lessons or the deployment reuniting, all of that, but also still be able to have a career no matter what. So, I mean, that's our why, and that's why we stick with it. And so if anyone doesn't fit that, that's a huge red flag. And we have core values as well. And that's kind of how we rate our team. Like if we're going to go, hey, we're here for building careers. We love the virtual work environment. They can work when they want, how much they want, where they want. But we want people who honestly want to continue to grow their skill. They're not just comfortable being an admin for 30 years. Like they want to go and they want to become, a project manager or a director or that kind of thing. So we're looking for people who are constantly wanting to grow. So we'll rate people based off of those core values that kind of fit with, hey, do you really want a career? Do you want to be a lifelong learner? Do you do excellence in the ordinary? Things like that, which we focus on because that's what's important to myself and Laura, not this Laura, but my Laura, co-founder of Wise, like things that are really important to us that we wanted to build into our business. So I think as long as you're putting that out there, I think it's the most important thing because we don't have walls that you can put it up there. There's nowhere for us to kind of drill it into people's heads because I know the core values from my organization from prior, but they didn't mean anything. And so I think we try to ascribe more meaning to it so that it sticks with them.
I love that. And I think there's a meaningful side to that for military spouses and veterans as well. I think building those core values and making them actually mean something and sticking to your why, and Laura, even sticking to what your beliefs for your organization, I think that there's something so powerful, I feel like, inside the military community specifically with all of that. Okay, I've got one last question. I'll let you guys choose who goes first. So what is the biggest light bulb moment you found when creating your remote business? What was that big, I wasn't expecting this to be something I needed to think about?
And see, now it's like a bunch of little things are popping up. But I guess for me, I'm constantly trying to figure out how do we streamline so I have to do less work.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
Just to make it more automatic. And I'd say for us, a big thing because we bill by the hour. And so cash flow can really be impacted if the client is late to pay us, but we need to pay the filmmaker. So we implemented a prepay system so that we do always have the cash available. But then what we started doing too is using JotForm. It's an online form builder that integrates with PayPal. So then they pay instantly and we get our money within a couple of days. And so that has really helped with cash flow. And I remember learning about cash flow in school and not really understanding why that was such a big deal until I started, basically a virtual staffing agency, and suddenly was like, crap, I don't have the cash to pay filmmakers. And so that was probably a big aha moment for me is how do you address cash flow while still providing a service to your clients and to your workers. And then in hand in hand with that or step in step with that is how do I do it where I have to do less work as well? So,
I think that's a very valiant thing to be trying to work out there. I love it.
Yeah, I guess. And then the other thing is I realized there are things that I don't like to do. And if I don't like to do them, I'm not going to do them. That's just, I've always been that way. But there are things you have to do in your business that you can't not do. And so then when I realized that for myself and then started delegating, then the business started growing. And so that was a big one. And I guess the last one, just sticking with your loneliness topic, even though I do have my weekly calls with my team, I'm still the boss, right? So it's still it can be lonely. And so what I've done now is a couple of my friends and I have come together, and we call it a jam session. And we come together every week on Google Hangouts, and we'll just like at the top of the hour for a few hours, and we'll say, okay, what's each person going to work on for the next hour? And then we all shut off our cameras and mics and go work for an hour and come back the following hour. And we'll do it for a few hours every week. But that has really helped too, because you still have to have a community, even if it's virtual. And so even though we're all local, we do it virtually. And when people are traveling, they might still join in depending on where they are. And so that's a big part too, is having my own community as well.
I think that's great. I love that jam session idea. That's a really cool one. I may have to do that just anyway, even though I see people all the time, but usually
you're welcome to join ours if you want.
Yeah, there you go. Thanks. I might do that. And Diana, what about you? Any like light bulb moments or like ahas you got?
Well, I think working virtually can be very difficult for different types of people. And for me, it isn't very difficult. I worked remotely when I worked in corporate for many years prior to starting. So I was used to kind of that remote, doing work on your own kind of thing. But what we've realized with different personalities on our team, that we've got to kind of build in different things. So kind of similar to what Laura was saying, either I or my co-founder, Laura, will create we call it office hours. Basically, similar thing. We just pop up on the screen. We stay on the screen for 3 hours, like once a week or so. And we let, people can pop on and have conversation or just work. It just is really up to them. And some people can commute a little bit and get work done. Some people, talk and work, just kind of creating that more of a, hey, we're all here together. So that was something that I didn't necessarily expect, just given that I'm just not like that. But I've also really enjoyed it too, because again, after a while, you do really need to look up and be like, oh, there's a light outside. Maybe I should be there, versus just putting your head down and working. But I mean, I think the other thing that we have really strived to combat is there's a lot of competition in this field. And what we like to do is we love to collaborate with people. Like if you didn't know, Laura and I collaborate, like even though we have very similar businesses, our businesses work together. This space is big enough for all of us. We work together to help both of our businesses grow, rather than being like, well, she's a competitor and I can't have a conversation with her. Like that's what I've really loved to see. Some people have said, oh no, like we're not interested. And that's totally fine. I respect that. But, I've also been really excited when people are like, yeah, let's have a conversation. How did you do this? Hey, this is a problem I have. Like I, meet often, Laura and I have met and talked through different issues that we've had with our teams going, oh, how did you fix that? And I've done that with other, similar virtual agency owners. And that's kind of, the coolest thing I've seen come out of it is that collaboration kind of over that competition mindset.
I love that. I'm really big on that. I have 11,000 competitors in my local market as a real estate agent. So that's a really important piece to me too, is community over collaboration, regardless of what industry I've worked in or what community, or even into the military, spouse, and veteran community. Like for all of us to come together and doing things like this, like the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast, so we can all get out there and connect. And there's so many other great, organizations all coming together to collaborate. And I love it. So that's really important. And I love that you guys came to hang out with me today and collaborate with me. I really appreciate it so much. And Laura and Diana, your contact information and your websites will be available in the notes for the podcast. And thanks guys so much. I appreciate it. I love hearing how you're doing this all remotely. And again, where were you guys 24 years ago? Like I needed you. So I really appreciate it. Thanks guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsay Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.